What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Now before we really get into things and look at the good and the bad of this project, I want to start out by just talking about a small caveat, which is that I'm going to be handling this video a little bit differently than probably any of the other reviewers are, which is that before I played this, I purposely did not go back and try out any of the original games again. While I did actually beat all three of these games back in the day, I don't really remember them very well. They've kind of fallen out of my brain. So I decided to try and go into this with a completely fresh start and basically look at this trilogy and really kind of examine if they're still going to be incredibly fun in 2018. And I have to say that they are. The key thing here is the fact that these are remakes and not remasters. The major difference being the fact that if you're remastering something, you usually have the original code, the programming that made the game exist in the first place. And so you're just putting a fresh coat of paint on the things that already exist. Whereas this is technically a completely rebuilt game from the ground up. Every pixel, every monster, every single fire blast is all new, and I think that it really shows in so many of the smaller details about it. These worlds are just so freaking crisp, and every single boss fight just seems to have such a quirky, cool part to it, and I really think the fact that they redid the music and everything was a very smart choice, because I really found myself actually kind of wiggling in my chair while facing a lot of these monsters, because it just feels like such a modern take on retro feeling. You see, these games back in the day were incredibly famous for the mere fact that they were some of the earliest 3D platformers that really managed to master the art of it. Every time you jump, glide, or tackle that next big foe, you really know what's going on, and here it's really kind of the best version of it. Well, the Spyro Reignited Trilogy is actually full remakes of the opening three games of the series, which is Spyro the Dragon, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and Spyro Year of the Dragon. These are essentially just different adventures in Spyro's life, and you don't really have to play them in any particular order. You may have needed to do that back in the day, but as far as I can tell, it seems like they basically just took everything and made it have the same controls, same graphics, and same pacing. With that being said, let's really dig into the controls and start to tear them apart. So each of these games really plays very identically. You really just have a couple buttons, which is charging with your horns, blowing fire, and jumping. And by tapping jumping a second time, you can glide. There's also an action button, but this is only used in very rare scenarios, like being able to do a swoop at the end of a double jump, or trying to dive underwater in particular stages. You're not going to be exactly using everything here, but for the most part, the game is all about simplicity, just going into every single situation and trying to figure out what of your two moves you're really going to be using, because you really only have two attacks, bash and fire, and everybody is susceptible to some form of it. And I actually think that this is a really cool way of handling it, because it really makes it where, as I was going through all three of these games, I really kind of just had fun with the very simplistic, almost bare bones nature of it. It really felt cool to just go through this giant kingdom of silly goblins and weird creatures here and there and just kind of bash them up. It never really felt like anything was too important or too big of a deal. I feel like something that's kind of bogged me down lately is so many games try and be so dark and serious and heavily realistic, and this really reminds me of a time period where everybody just wanted to be quirky and bizarre, and it's really nice. I like the fact that everybody just seems like they're having so much fun while actually saving the world, or in some cases trying to take it over. So in each of the three games, there's a different main objective. In one of them, you're trying to find a bunch of dragon crystals. In one, you need a bunch of talismans to basically save the world with energy spheres. And in the third one, it's basically about trying to track down dragon eggs. And while each of these objectives is different, they really just play out the exact same, because it's just a matter of trying to seek out and find each of the different items hidden in every single stage. Now, here's one of the biggest things about this that really got me addicted to playing through these games to full completion is the fact that these games aren't super long. You can actually beat them relatively fast if you're rushing to the end, but that's not at all the point. The real allure to this is really trying to conquer every single challenge, find every single secret, and get every single collectible that's hidden throughout these massive stages. And I like this because it really makes it where you feel like you're being motivated to just kind of check everywhere and really just kind of have fun finding things all over the place. If you wanted, it would be possible to theoretically just get the minimum amount of items and go straight to the last boss, but that seems like something that just kind of betrays the entire spirit of this series. I mean, it'd be like trying to just play a racing game randomly and just parking on the side of the road. While it's true that it's possible, that's not exactly the point. Each of the entries in this trilogy are very, very unified in their vision of just trying to have a really quirky sense of adventure, but I do think that it's not quite perfect. One of the few flaws of this game is that I feel like Spyro 2 specifically, it goes a little bit too hard into trying to explain everything. I mean, if you started with this, I would understand it, but it's really kind of odd. The game stops you a lot. There are literally mandatory text bubbles that'll pop up, and sometimes they just say stuff that's completely pointless. Like at one point, after I'd already beaten a few levels, it suddenly stopped me to explain how to move the camera. Stuff like this isn't exactly a huge gripe, it's just very, very strange as to why they'd put it in. I think that this is something that probably existed in the original game and they were afraid of trying to change it, but this is one thing that I think might have done a little bit better if you rounded it out or maybe just made an optional tutorial. That way the people who knew the controls or beating the games in order had a chance to try and skip this stuff. I do want to say though that by far the best part about this game is when they just kind of take the handcuffs off and let you go around. I mean, a lot of times there's people you do need to talk to in each stage who will explain who's been captured, where you need to go, or what you need to be doing overall. And I think that when those people kind of step aside and just let you get lost in the environments, those are the times where I truly was having the most thrilling times, because that's when I really got a chance to really kind of unfurl my wings and see all the different cool things they've done with these remakes. I like the times when I just stumbled upon a random secret where I'm actually skateboarding as Spyro the Dragon. Going up these different ramps and trying to get different collectibles was just so, well, unique. It's a kind of adventure that nobody else could really capture, and just a few minutes later I could have a challenge where I'm suddenly on a launch pad that's making me run at 1,000,000 miles an hour and I'm trying to catch somebody who's sprinting away from me with a dragon egg. Or in another game I could have a challenge where I have infinite flight and I'm trying to blow up a series of trains and fly through a bunch of hoops to get treasure. These elements seem like they'd be so different that they would actually clash or not be able to mix flawlessly, but they somehow do. It's a game that really sort of defies description in many aspects because the point of it is to be weird. You are supposed to get lost, you're supposed to be confused, and sometimes you're supposed to just wonder what the heck is coming up next. But every moment of it is super, super fun. The few occasions where I found myself getting a little bit annoyed is that certain things require a lot of trial and error. Like sometimes you'll just have to fly in a random direction off a cliff or try and figure out which of the pools of water aren't going to kill you. It seems like this was definitely developed in an era where they wanted kids to just try things over and over and over again until eventually they found a way to progress. It's not at all a major detriment or something that really hurts the experience. It's just one of those things that I wanted to warn you about in case you were hoping this to be something that's very straightforward and easy to consume. You are going to mess up, you are going to make mistakes, and occasionally you're just going to not even know how to hurt an enemy, because this game is about trying to really figure things out no matter the cost. But overall, I had a super, super good time with this. I really wish more remakes had this high quality amount of love put into it. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving the Spyro Reignited Trilogy a 9 out of 10. If you're somebody who's really been looking for something to try and scratch that retro itch, something that really manages to encapsulate that cool charm of the 90s, I highly recommend you pick this up. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.